Hello and good morning, good afternoon to everybody. Welcome back, parents, for episode 19 of Parenting Accurately. I am so glad that you guys are here. What an amazing day today in this time, the season that we're in. Everybody has been homeschooling and we really are uncertain of how long this is going to last. So I am excited to bring on my guest again, the Benhams. Today, Kaylin Benham's going to be joining us, and we're going to continue discussing parenting intentionally, and especially along the line of homeschooling. You know, with everything that's going on, this is a very, very, very relevant topic. And I know that many parents out there are really, in a sense, struggling to make that adjustment and to be able to make that transition of having the kids be at school and the normal routine that we've all had to having the kids be home. And you know, with everything else that's going on, maybe you're at home and you're normally working. Many uncertainties, lots of very fast changes. I know that stress can be high, anxiety can be high in the house. So we're going to talk more about those things today. And I believe that through this discussion, by tuning in, it's going to be a blessing to you, and you'll be more equipped after this to be able to handle and be more in control of where we're going as a family, where we're going with our kids, and really take the most of this opportunity. You know, I know that it's very unfortunate as what's happening, but it's always important that in any case that we look at things through a positive lens and we find the good in it. And we are in a land and a time of great opportunity to slow down, you know, to evaluate our family, to evaluate our where we are with our kids and how everybody's doing. And so I'm looking forward to this conversation. I'm really glad you guys are here. If you have any questions for Kaylin or myself, please leave them in the comments. We'd love to know you're here. If you're here, say, you know, I'm here, hit the like button or love button. Let everybody else know that you're here so we can enjoy this time together. All right, so I'm really excited to welcome back Kaylin Benham. Thank you. Welcome back again.
Hi, Jason. How are you?
I am great. I'm so excited about this. I'm glad that I've been waiting all weekend for this episode to start. I've been thinking about it and talking to other friends that have been affected really by the virus and what's happening and how their lives have changed drastically, literally overnight.
Yes.
And now, you know, with everything that was extended to the end of April yesterday, I mean, for the schools, the impact is probably, I'm hearing a couple different things. I know my kids' school said that April 30th they were going to return. That was a couple weeks ago. And some schools are saying that they're just done for the year.
Yeah.
That's it. We'll see you next year. So it's likely, I mean, that could happen, but in any case, kids are home for a while.
Yep.
And that's brought on a lot of changes in the world and in our home.
Absolutely.
You know, some good, some stressful.
Yes.
And I think, you know, in terms of that, I believe that it's okay to really realize and to take note of what's happening.
Yeah.
You know, as far as the stress levels and where are the trigger points. I mean, I want to talk about several things today. You know, we're talking about parenting intentionally, and it's only right that we continue discussing homeschool and parenting in that sense because it's very relevant right now and everybody's dealing with it. But before we get into the parenting our children part, let's talk a few minutes about ourselves as the adults, as the parents, right?
Yes.
I think that
we're all being schooled right now.
For sure, right? We're all being schooled, challenged, tested.
Yeah.
You know, I just feel, I think of, you know, the pressure that gets applied to a grape or to an olive to you know, push that oil out. I think that's happening to us all as parents, and that process is not fun.
No. Well, it's interesting. While you were saying that, you know, we're all being drawn back to home, and what's so beautiful about that is in the home is where it should all begin, right? Like
Right.
all of those things, all the character building things, kind of us being able to express who we are, all of that should come out of the home. And in a lot of cases, the world has really moved a lot of things out of the home. And so now we're kind of all being forced back into the home. And it's a little unsettling in some senses. But I actually I'm sensing that because of the duration of this,
Yeah.
that they'll be like, in the beginning, it's like this, what the heck do we do? And we're all feeling uncomfortable and disoriented. And it's really, it's not good, like you would label it not good. But then there'll become like a settling point where hopefully most parents will get a point to say, like, okay, wow, I get to choose how
Hmm.
this is going to be. And, because it's not comfortable for anyone, the parents or the kids. But you can make it more comfortable for your children by starting to get comfortable with yourself in
Right.
the new circumstances.
Yeah, for sure. It's excuse me. It's really important that we lead as parents, in peace. So in order to lead our children and our home in peace, we must be able to find peace ourselves
Yes.
and operate out of that place of peace. And just practically speaking, it's a lot easier to lead in peace when we have control. When we as parents feel like, okay, we're in control of the situation, there's nothing to worry about. We know, but then they're so I think everybody's in a mode or in a time where now our faith is being tested,
Yeah.
and okay, it's like, okay, are we really in peace, or are we trying to show our kids a face that may not be accurately to our heart?
So
And
true.
it's important that we take time, do self care,
Yeah.
evaluate our own relationship with God, with our family, with each
Yeah.
individual of our family, and find that place of peace, and then parent, and live out of that out of that
Yeah.
place.
Well, what's interesting is I don't know about you, but for me, a lot of my confusion as a child came from almost intuitively knowing that there were things going on behind the scenes that nobody ever actually talked about and had words for.
Mm,
And so I like grew up sort of feeling like number one, a little bit confused and always like I didn't fit in because there were so many things going on in me and there was no place to actually talk about those things. And then but also like that's part of how God's gifted me in a provisional sense is allowing me to always be aware of the things that are going unsaid.
yeah,
And so I think our kids are actually way more aware of those things that we don't say than we give them credit for. They just don't actually have the space to verbalize it. And so I feel like what we have right now is an opportunity as families is to give them space to verbalize it while you're also practicing the verbalization of how you're experiencing this time. And, the best thing about this time is we get to really enter in as a beginner.
right,
Nobody's ever done this before. So
yeah,
this is, we get to show our kids, hey, we've never done this before. And so we're going to trust God like we always do, but it's going to look different. And we're going to have to engage with Him in different ways. And we're going to have to check in with ourselves. And, there's a lot of components to that.
yeah, for sure. You know, it's. I remember, and I think probably many kids or many people have felt this way when they were kids. That there was one at one point or another, they sensed things going on, but it wasn't really talked about. Like you mentioned, and
Yeah.
that does create a level of fear. It creates a level of anxiety within the child. So I definitely agree that and it's important that we take time now to really give our kids a voice, give our kids a chance to speak up and express how they feel. Um, it's something that can't be overlooked.
Yeah.
Like you said, like we're all in this together, and we're all in
Mhm.
this for the first time. just about everybody, it's, this is a new experience. It's a new experience for the child too.
Yeah.
And so the more like unity that we can get a hold of in this time, I think the smoother this transition could be, because it feels like this is a transition now. It's not necessarily just a temporary, hey, you're gonna be at home for 3 or 4 weeks.
Right.
It's more or less a permanent change, at least through the rest of this school year.
Right.
And so how we finish this school year, I think I'm looking ahead and I'm thinking, how are they going to bring everybody back into the schools? And what is that going to look like? I mean, how are they going to evaluate, if kids really did the work or not, or if they really learned or not? Are they going to hold everybody back
Yeah.
another year and say, we need to do it all over again?
Right.
They're just going to push everybody through,
Right.
and then start teaching them things that's above their head. There's a lot of things that we don't really know yet, but I'm struggling. I'm talking with friends, and they have kids that are just inundated with work, because it's like they've transferred all of the work that they're doing in the classroom and said, okay, now do it at home.
Yep.
And it's not working. And so as a parent, he's feeling like this is not healthy. This is not good. I'm not doing my job right. And unfortunately, some of the parents are able to work from home, so it does help. But I'm thinking of, the parents that are watching and listening that are still working.
Yeah.
They still have their 9 to 5. They're still working. Maybe even both parents or single parents working. So then they get a couple hours with their kids in the evening, and have to cram school into that time.
Right. Well, and I think that's like the key is, this is my personal opinion.
Yeah.
The education system, being as sort of antiquated as it has an opportunity to kind of evolve with the times right now. And so they're not equipped to do that. Otherwise they would have been doing that all of this time. And so now they're trying to send school home, which for anybody that homeschools knows, you don't just do school at home and call it homeschool.
Right.
Homeschool is so different than what people are experiencing now. This is I call this quarantine school. And, and especially for us homeschoolers that homeschool, this is quarantine school. This is not homeschool like normal. But for somebody in the public education system that is now home, this is quarantine school. I want you to hear that loud and clear. This is not homeschool.
Yeah.
And so I think this is a time for families to rise up and really determine what is best for our family. And you get to do a literal reset. Having homeschooled for the last couple of years, I can honestly say that the kids not being in school, let's say elementary age, it might get a little different, middle school, high school, from an amount of work perspective and, what they need to be ready for. But especially elementary age, if they do nothing for the rest of the school year, but read good books and, have discussions about books, just kind of talk about, oh, what did you notice them doing? And what did you, whatever. And, just kind of some of that stuff.
Right.
And do a little bit of writing and some math, and let the kids play, for cripe's sake. I mean, that's
get that energy out.
Yeah. It's and go out and play with them.
Right.
Go play with them. There's so much stored up stress and anxiety that can lock in our bodies during times like this, that if you're not out moving, I mean, sometimes we'll take books outside and we'll kind of do obstacle courses with the book. You read a little book and then you got to do 10 push-ups. You read a little bit of the book, you got to run around the house. Just silly stuff to keep minds and everything engaged and moving. But I it makes me sad, the families that are now expected to basically operate like a school at home And I hope the education system will sort of start to readjust their expectations. Through every time of transition, my friend Drew Neal says this, through every time of transition, we get an opportunity to create redefinition. And so it's like, this is a time to redefine. And you can redefine right now for this season. Like, okay, for this season, what is it going to look like for our family? What does education look like for our family? Because that's ultimately what a homeschooler asks themselves.
Right.
Is, what does education mean to me? Like, what does that look like? And so, but with the education system putting a pressure like that on a parent that, is also in a disoriented state, it just creates a lot of unnecessary stress for the teachers that are, like being held to sort of give this work and show up in a different way, create experiences now online for the first time. They've never done this before. There is no space for the the significance of the change that's happening to settle in and say, okay, let's redefine what now.
Right.
So
I hear a lot of hope coming from what you're saying.
Oh my gosh. If you can grab it, yes.
Yeah, and I know and I understand that some may not be able to grab this because some first even as people, they like order, they like structure, they like to set a goal and then reach it, to set those benchmarks, and that seems like that's what school is all about. And I was thinking as you were talking about everything that you mentioned about the way that we homeschool and that school at home necessarily is not a good representation of what homeschool normally would look like. High school, it seems like high school is more intense than second grade.
Yeah, totally.
But yet they spend about the same amount of time in school. And so that there's a lot of time in grade school and elementary school that is not necessarily focused on learning. You're not listening to a lecture and taking notes, and it looks different. But as parents, we may not realize how different it looks because we're not there.
Right.
We just know that we dropped them off at the same time. I have a child in high school, and I have a couple kids, one in preschool, kindergarten and second grade. So they virtually go to school at the same time and come home at the same time.
Yeah.
But so I hear hope because as a parent, I've got the little ones home now. We homeschool the high schooler, and that's really honestly easy because I'm not involved in that other than just to check up on her. And, I get emails from the teachers that, almost every week that let me know where she's at. So I can ensure that she's on track. With the elementary kids, that's quite a bit different. So, but I'm not expected as a parent to dedicate 6, 7 hours with them a day.
Yeah.
And
let's hope not.
If the school gives us that impression, or if we take that impression subconsciously, we're constantly going to feel that there's no way I can do this. I can't wait till school starts.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and then that drives all of the other time in your house because you have this looming, whether it's a thought or just the feeling of the expectation that you're carrying that you need to now do school at home. Mm-hmm. Now you're carrying that, and that weighs on every other thing that you're doing and every other interaction that you have with your kids and with yourself about how you're not measuring up to that, whether said or unsaid expectation.
Right.
And so what I talk to the moms that I work with about is, what is the win for the day? Uh-huh. What is right now specifically, what is your win, or dads, what is your win for the day? What is it what does it look like to have an integration at home? So you have work at home now, you have school at home now, you have family at home because you're still family. Yeah. What does it look like to have all of that be at home? And what is the win in each of those areas? And we've even had to redefine this. I mean, Scott and I are used to we're used to working from home, schooling from home, and being family at home, but we've had to redefine what it looks like now, because now we don't have extracurricular things for the kids. We don't have other classes that they usually would go to once a week. Some of those things are now not there. And so we've had to say, okay, for me, it looks like today a win would be I need a couple hours to really have my head down uninterrupted with work.
Right.
And then we need to get this done for this child, this done for this child, this done for this child. And that's a win. That's going to be
Uh-huh.
good enough. And we need to go outside and play as a family. And
Yeah.
we kind of create some simple pockets of wins that at the end of the day, instead of letting it all swirl around and be like, what are we going to do next? We already have our list of wins, and it's easy to kind of navigate that list of wins.
Yeah. I think that's really important, because I mean, if you could do that, just narrow it down to just, what am I going to do today? What's the win today?
Yeah.
You remove a lot of the stress,
Yeah.
and you also remove a lot of that stress from your children,
Yes.
because they're not going to be stressed out, because
Yeah.
they'll receive whatever we're projecting,
Yeah.
and very,
Well,
very well.
and they have purpose.
Right.
So like right now, kids are struggling because they don't know what their purpose is. Normally their purpose is I go to school and I find like I'm getting things accomplished, whether it's, I had this project, we are reading this book, we're working on this, this worksheet, this whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You're going through that in a classroom, but now you're at home and you still have to create with them. What does it look like to feel like I've accomplished something for the day? What does it look like to be a part of this family? So that's we bring in some responsibilities for school as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, we're all under this roof. Here's all the things that it takes to make this home function. Where can you take part in this? And also, that's a win for our family for the day. So everybody should be contributing to their own win and to a win for the family. And that then really helps your family, number one, stay unified. Number two, has everybody taking ownership in what's happening in the house. And number three, creates that sense of purpose for the kids. So they know, I'm actually still contributing to something, even though I haven't left my yard or my home in the last 2 weeks.
Right. This also creates a huge opportunity to be able to teach our kids things that they don't really learn at school.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Go on all day about that.
I know, right? I was talking with my wife over the weekend, about I've told her, I guess since we've been inside, I told her, I said, I really want to become more of an outdoors family. I really want to. I think we need to make a decision, and we made a decision over the weekend that we're going to be more intentional in the future when we can, as soon as we're allowed out of our house, to be more of an outdoors family.
Yeah.
Spend less time going to the movies and more time going to the lake. And, I've gone fishing with my kids, a few times, and they've loved it. But, we haven't gone as much as I'd like to.
Yeah.
Hunting and just different things. And I told them, one of the things that fishing, for example, will teach your kids is patience.
Yeah.
That's hard to learn in a classroom.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's many opportunities that we could really indirectly teach our kids things, along with the curriculum and along with the academics, but life skills.
Yes. I mean, that in itself is that's homeschool.
Yeah.
Life right now is your curriculum. And we are an outdoorsy family,
Yeah.
but for us, I said to Scott, I'm like, oh my gosh, I think we've gone on the same amount of bike rides in the last 2 weeks that we had gone on in the last 6 months.
Right.
I mean, every day there's a bike ride. And what we do is we let each of the kids kind of take turns leading, right? They get to take a leadership role. They have to communicate about, cars that are coming ahead, or, hey, we're going to turn right here, or we're going to turn left there. So they're working as a team, letting your people know, just kind of all these things that you can really people might want a formalized curriculum about, like, hey, I want to teach my kids about leadership or about working together as a team. Well, hey, do something with your family
Yes.
and, communicate through what's happening. Like, oh, hey, when you're leading, you have to have patience so that everybody can hear, everybody knows you're on the same page.
Right.
But part of being a good leader is also, hey, when somebody else is leading, that you're following well.
Right.
And what does that look like? And so, yeah, let life be your curriculum right now for sure. And make sure you are like entering into that, like, well, what did we learn here?
Yeah.
What is learned from when I bake something in the kitchen with the kids, or when we go out in the garden and like we decided to do an experiment the other day. I had peppers that I had cut up, and we also had a seed pack, like a pack of seeds of peppers. I was like, oh, okay, like cool. Let's do a little experiment and see which one grows like more peppers. Is it
Hmm.
like when we plant the seeds from the actual pepper that we ate in the ground, or is it the seed package? And I don't know the answer. Like, I don't know what's going to come up. Florida gardening is crazy. But it was just something that gets them to think like a little differently with something that we were just doing in life. And that is school.
Right.
When your kids are thinking and participating with you as a human being,
Hmm.
that's school.
And that's what will stick with them.
Yeah.
Though they may forget. I don't remember every lesson that I ever went to in class, but there are certain things that I do not forget.
Yeah.
That I learned from my parents.
Yeah.
Over the weekend, my dad. I've been thinking a lot about him lately. He passed away 4 years ago yesterday,
Mhm.
and he was just in a place. He didn't leave anything to speak of as far as an inheritance. He didn't leave anything when he
Mhm.
left. He was in Florida alone, no family. It was really an unfortunate
Mhm.
situation. But I was remembering, you know, I'm working on a project now in the garage. I'm painting my Land Cruiser,
Oh,
and I've
cool.
never painted a car before. But I figured, what, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to learn how to do
Yeah.
it. And I realized as I was doing this, like it's brought back a lot of memories. To be honest with you, my dad,
Yeah.
he was good at welding. He painted cars. He fixed them. I
Cool.
mean, he literally could do anything. I've
Mhm.
never in my entire childhood remember him calling anybody to help.
Hmm.
He never called like a service guy to come out and do something, even around the house. Like nothing. He just did it himself.
Yeah.
And I'm the same way. I realized
Mhm.
that. I was like, wait a minute. Like very, very seldom will I need to hire a professional to come in and do something
Hmm.
in life, because I can. If I don't know how to do it, I'm not afraid to try.
Yeah,
And
you
now
figure
with
it
Google and YouTube, we can do anything. But so I
out.
mean, I realized that he taught me that. Even
Yeah.
though he didn't sit me down and show me how to paint a car, even though I remember like helping him sand a car when I was little, I probably made it harder for him than it helped him.
Yeah.
But just being around him,
Yeah.
I caught all that.
Yeah.
There's things you like are taught, but then the real value of life is when you catch things.
Yes.
Those things you
Yeah.
can't let go of because they're
Yeah.
in you.
Mhm.
That's the time that I think that's the most valuable education we can give our kids. Now,
Absolutely.
you homeschool all your kids. Did you always homeschool them, or did they go through a transition of public school and then homeschool?
Yeah, so my kids have always been my oldest son, who is almost 11. He went to kindergarten in public school, and from then he transferred. We had them in private school, and then it was just 2 years ago that we brought them all home. So he had like 3 years, 3 years in school.
Hmm.
My younger son had 2 years in school, and my daughter, she went to pre-K, a pre-K program.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay. So how I want to ask you, how has making that transition from an outside
Hmm.
schooling to
Yeah.
homeschooling affected your, I would say, effectiveness in your parenting? Like, how has it changed your parenting style
Hmm.
or ability, or
Hmm. So for me, I've always been super intentional with my parenting. I mean, I feel like that's one thing. Man, it's been such a struggle. Parenting is definitely one of like life's greatest challenges.
Right.
And so bringing them home, um, I sort of had to redefine, like through any transition, what it was going to look like for me to be the mom that I wanted to be first.
Mhm.
And then what kind of educational experience did we want to create for our kids? And what are the, and so it's kind of like maturing me first and saying, okay, wait, how can I school them and still be the mom that I want to be? As opposed to how are we going to school them? I
Right.
had to figure out like, hey, what is it? How is this going to be a win for me first? Because nobody learns from an angry school teacher. You know what I mean?
True. Yep.
Nobody learns when mommy's frustrated. And so so that's kind of like a personal rule I have. If I've turned something into a task with my kids,
Hmm.
like if we're learning or doing school and I'm like, okay, hurry up, we got to just move on this, or come on, you're messing around, or if I start to sense my own impatience in it, I realize I've turned it into a task. And for me, part of the reason why we homeschool is to create like relational maturity.
Hmm.
And so if I'm not participating in my own relational maturity,
Yeah.
I know that it's time for me to stop schooling. And
Yeah.
so I will pull back and just say, hey, you know what? Let's take a 20-minute break. Let's come back to this afternoon. Let's go, redirect.
Yeah.
Or, hey, mommy's going to go for a walk outside quick, or whatever. So that was kind of my transition. Now, I did not do that immediately. I kicked and screamed. I kicked by myself, but I screamed with my family
Yeah.
for many months of that first transition. And actually, in the homeschooling community, what they recommend you do is what they call deschooling. So that's a concept. If you're listening, you can search it. There's actually a couple really good articles on deschooling. But they say for every month or every year of public or formal education that your child has had, that you deschool 1 month.
Wow. What
And
does that look like?
so deschooling looks like no formal anything. You're just reintroducing, like, what does it look like for us to be together all the time?
Hmm.
Resetting what expectations look like around the house and how we're going to work together. And it's really a time for you to get to know your kids and really tap into, like, oh wow, my one son can go out in the forest and like find some crazy things, and within an hour he's like built something, where my other son might want to go on YouTube and before he goes out in the forest, watch some video of something that, he wants to create and then go get the supplies to go do that thing. And so now right there, I can just kind of pay attention to my kids and see like, oh wow, okay, one is driven totally by like that imaginative, intuitive, creative process. One likes the instructions and the structure, but then wants to be able to create something based on what they've learned. And so it's kind of just tapping into your kids and seeing what do they love, what are they drawn to, what kind of questions do they
Yeah.
ask.
That I think right there is the key. Is it noticing different characteristics in our children?
Yeah.
If you begin to take them, take and it takes intentionality, right?
Yes.
It doesn't
A
happen
ton.
automatically, and it may take even practice.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
once you begin to pick it up, and once you begin to see that how your kids are different, and their strengths, their characteristics, then you can build and pull up those strengths and characteristics out,
Yeah.
right? I
Hmm.
think one thing that I remember reading a book a long time ago from John Maxwell, and he's a leadership guy, and he always talks about becoming the best leader. And I remember doing a double take when I read a part in the book where it said, everybody has strengths and weaknesses. You need to find your strengths and realize what your weaknesses are, and then focus on your strengths.
Mm-hmm.
And my mind immediately thought, what? I would think that I need to focus on my weaknesses and make them strong.
No.
But his point was that they're weaknesses.
Yeah.
Focus on your strengths and make them better.
Yeah.
And
like if you think about that, like God wired you a specific way that is quote unquote your strengths.
Right.
And so focusing on your weaknesses, it's sort of like, yeah, sometimes we have to learn a new skill or something to support one of our strengths.
Mm-hmm.
But really, you are going to be your most free, most effective, most expressive version of yourself if you are getting to operate out of your strengths and even knowing what those are. And I think a lot of our kids, they might not even know what those are because in school it might be so rigid that they just have to move from task to task to task that they don't actually know, geez, what comes to my mind when I think of doing this, as opposed to, oh, I've just got to, read this paragraph, figure out this thing, and maybe there's not really much creative expression there.
Right.
So, yeah.
That makes a big difference, because then we can identify the strengths that our kids have, and then use that to build them up, to build their confidence.
Yes.
I think that's one of the things also, with kids today and building their confidence. And it's so easy, and I've been a parent. I've parented in this way to where, I'm just looking for the fire. I'm looking for the weakness that they have to hit them with it. And I call them out on their weaknesses rather than, taking that extra time and extra intentionality to pull out and recognize and validate their strengths.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? Like, sorry, I'm going to hit you right now with it. But like when we do that, it's because of the reaction and the triggering that's happening in us. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, they like, I don't know. I'm just trying to think of something that might be seemingly silly that I might make a comment on. But the truth is, if I actually sit in that place of, well, why does that bother me? Like they're little people, they're little human beings they just don't have the capacity to always remember all the things and know like all the functionings of like, hey, that's not a normal human thing to do, child. Well, they don't know that. Yeah. And if we like criticize them, as opposed to call out their greatness, really be like that breeding ground for their greatness, it's usually just tapping into an insecurity of mine. Like, oh, I don't want you to do this because if you did this out in public, people would think X about me as a parent, or that I haven't done well, or whatever. And it's like, oh, wow, when it comes back to you, then it has nothing to do with them. And, that's like a spot then you can look at for your own maturing. Because so we did this thing once and I made the kids list out like almost, why are you special? I mean, I don't remember what the words were, but like, what does God say about you that makes you you? And they each made their own little list. For the ones that like couldn't write neatly or whatever, like I wrote for them, or they wanted to draw pictures, whatever their expression of it was fine. But then we would talk about it. And then like, if God gave me additional words, I would add them. Like I would just say, hey, you know what? Like God's saying to me that you're super creative, or, whatever it is. And then I would use the words that they got for themselves. I mean, and I still do this. I mean, this is a regular thing that I'll be like, the other day, my son, I put it on my stories. He created basically a rope. He attached a rope to a log and lodged it on the top of the slide in our treehouse so that they could like sort of pull themselves up while they walk up the slide.
Uh,
Just totally. And it was like he had tried it a couple times before that. And because one of his words that God gave him was he's an inventor.
mm,
And it's like, shoot, there I am seeing him invent something. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Noah,
yeah.
I love your inventions. Your invention, like the fact that God is already speaking to you and helping you invent things is so cool. And it's for right now. So that's like something I like to tell parents. It's like, don't ask your kids what they want to be in the future. Like, ask your kids to tap into who they are now
Mm,
and strengthen that, because then
yeah,
their
that's good.
future will come clear based on them being who they get to be right now.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. Love that.
Even kids, I think, they have goals, they have,
Yes.
plans. They, in their mind, they have dreams.
Yeah.
And if we can help them identify their strengths and what their characteristics are, what their abilities are, then it would help motivate them to even go deeper with that
Yes.
and be more
Yeah.
intentional, even in
Yeah.
their own direction that they set.
Well, and even like if you think about it, like I don't know if you've ever worked with a coach or whatever, just as an adult, like
Hmm.
it's much more likely that I'm going to be successful and hit my goals if somebody is saying, Kaylin, you are using, your gifts right now. You just expressed that beautifully.
Hmm.
Like, wow, that article you wrote was amazingly powerful. These are the things I took from it. I'm gonna like blossom, as opposed to if somebody comes and says, I didn't really feel like you showed up in this place, or I wanted you to write something this way, or you know what I mean, and comes at me with critique.
Yeah.
Now, like, don't hear what I'm not saying. There's a space for constructive feedback, and like we should be open to that. But I'm just saying the way to motivate and like help develop an expression is through that, like the encouragement and edification of somebody's gifting.
Yeah.
So
When somebody gives you that first scenario that you said, when they are telling you that they loved what you did, it was really
yeah,
creative, and that makes you want to do it again.
yes, and
And
better, because then
yeah,
you get
exactly.
new ideas.
Right.
Yeah,
That kind of creates an atmosphere of growth. It creates an atmosphere
yeah,
of continuing to further that skill and perfect it and do it again and get it out there.
yes.
And that same thing happens with our kids.
Oh my gosh, so much. So my little guy Noah, he's 8, and he's like, I kind of feel like he's partially our little family barometer.
Hmm.
Like I can kind of look at Noah and see like where are we at as a family.
Yeah.
And a lot of times he'll share his confusion, because in one breath I could be saying, wow, that's like, what an invention. That's so cool. And then the next time I can be like, Noah, seriously, you need to put your laundry in the hamper. I don't want to find underwear all over the,
Right.
whatever. And because like, and I may or may not say it nicer than that sometimes, and I may say it not as nice sometimes, but it's just like in their little minds, he'll say to me, it's just confusing being me sometimes. And I'm like, well, why? Why do you think that? And he's
Yeah.
like, well, because sometimes you're like this and sometimes you're like that. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. It's hard to stay in the position of always, like always focusing on, on the positive stuff. I'm not going to be like bright, shiny glasses, because that's not real.
Right.
There's a part, and I'll just tell them there's a part of me that's human too. And I get frustrated or tired of whatever. And so I apologize for like showing up that way. This is still who you are, but you've got to step into like a greater level right now of like responsibility for that, like who you are. And so then we get to talk about responsibility in a whole new way. because I'm taking responsibility for me and eliminating the confusion that, like, shoot, I'd also be confused if my coach was like, hey, you're doing awesome, you're da da da, and you got all this going on. But you were, 5 minutes late to our call, and that's not okay. And, like, just in a different sense, I don't know if
Yeah,
that makes sense, but
for sure.
yeah. So just really creating that environment, and letting it all be okay at the same
Yeah,
time. Like, I mean, falling and getting back up. And that's what we can do right now,
yeah.
especially since we're all together.
Right. So it sounds like the most important thing that would really help us to become very intentional in our parenting is to look for opportunities to give direction, to educate the kids, even outside of a homeschool setting, or like, even when if they have time, they're dedicated to learning. But we find learning in in as many opportunities as we can, just in doing
Yes.
life together.
Mm-hmm.
But calling out the education and calling out the things that we see in them as we learn more about them, and making it known to them.
Yeah,
You're giving
for
them the life
sure.
skills, life experience, and those things.
Yeah. And just like modeling that by sharing, oh, what did you learn today? Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I'll just sit down and be like, oh my gosh, mommy learned a huge lesson today.
Right.
And I'll simplify it. I mean, I won't give them all the details, but I'll just be like, hey, when I don't do something right when I know I'm supposed to do it, it gets really frustrating to me. And, and then I get impatient. So I'm sorry. If that came off on you or
Yeah.
whatever,
You
just
know,
modeling.
there's we our time is going by so fast. We have about 10 minutes left, and I want to transition into something else that's pretty heavy on my heart, and that's with the closeness of family now, closeness of people. Not every family
Hmm.
is the same. Not everybody, some people are roommates with other people, and now that there's more people that are in one building, one home or one apartment at the same time,
Yeah.
stress can become a lot higher for everybody.
Hmm.
And I've been seeing some reports of child abuse
Hmm.
raising, um,
Hmm.
even deaths,
Hmm.
suicide, because among kids. Because if you have a home that's toxic or that's unhealthy, and now
Hmm.
you keep them,
Yeah.
for some kids, and just being very clear with parents and being very transparent here. I mean, that's what we're here for. We want to help.
Hmm.
Um, for some kids, they saw school as an escape,
Yeah, for sure.
and now they're home with, you know, that parent that hurts them or that
Yeah.
is always angry. And so,
Yeah.
for parents that
Hmm.
may be in that place where they know, if they were to really self reflect and realize, like, what, I'm always yelling, or I'm always stressed out, or maybe sometimes I do lash out at my kids. Uh, what can we say to those parents to help them?
Yeah.
It's because I'm sure they might even be feeling more of a failure now, or more
Yeah.
stressful. Um,
Yeah. I mean, my heart really does go out to those parents. I mean, we've all had times of not being the parent that we want to be.
yeah,
Um, and I think, really, and this might be super challenging at a time of crisis, but if you feel like that at all, so here's my radical approach to
mm-hmm.
healing and movement is, you have to get things outside of you. So if you are actually able to see this about yourself and it's scary, you don't know what to do. Maybe you lose control in moments, and you can't get control of yourself in those moments. But like right now, this moment, you're hearing this and you're like, wow, yeah, there are definitely moments where I lose control of myself and I show up in a way I don't want to. If you can identify with that right now, if you have like that awareness, I mean, my first like, and this is, it's like, you're not going to want to do it. So I'll just say that you're
Mm-hmm.
not going to want to do it. You need to get every bit of that outside of you through like verbally.
Uh-huh.
And so I would immediately call a therapist, call a heart, like a heart healing person. If you're a person of faith, they have heart healing like with Sozo or, heart sync or any of those modalities. But otherwise just a therapist, and um, and just start that journey of verbalizing and getting it outside of you, because
Yeah.
otherwise what happens is it just keeps spinning and spinning and spinning. The snowball gets bigger, you act out more and more, and then really what you're doing is protecting yourself and your family from that moment that you're out of control and it goes way too far.
Right.
And again, I will tell you, I mean, as much as I work with parents right now, or even like leaders, um, like I can honestly say that I have had moments where I have literally wanted to pick up my children and throw them. Like it's like, and it feels really yucky to say that out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but all of that can be within you, and you can still be a good parent,
Yes.
and you can still, there's still hope. There's still a way through that. Um, and so that's what I would say. Like, just honestly, as scary as it is to take a look at some of those feelings that you have and the anger that rises, the madness that rises,
Mm-hmm.
um, like find a safe place, with a trained professional that will be able to listen and hold that space for you to take a look at it. Because until like, like here's like a notebook, but like if you have this and you put all of the stuff out on the notebook and you can look at it from back here,
Right.
as opposed to it being like in here, you know, you'll see it differently, and somebody safely can walk you through looking at it differently.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, that would be my first step, because of course, like there are steps then to unwind that story going on in you and the way that your family right now is operating. But
Mm-hmm.
it can certainly be done, um, to unwind yourself first, and then your kids will kind of wind down from that place as
Yeah.
well.
Definitely. Kind of goes back to what we talked about at the beginning, leading from a place of peace. And
Yeah,
if you're not in peace, then there's no way that to really lead in peace or lead by peace, and
yeah,
you know let the kids enjoy that atmosphere.
yeah.
Um, if you're watching and maybe you're saying that that kind of maybe I'm not that bad, but I do recognize that I could use some help.
Yeah,
Message us. We do have in our circles we have some fantastic family therapists
yeah.
that are really amazing. Diana Bingham,
Hmm.
Cindy, and others that we know, and they're out there. They're a great resource, and I know that their heart is for family and to really help in a very positive, very good way. So
Yes.
definitely reach out. Don't be afraid to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for joining us. I really appreciate it. This has been a great hour, and
Yeah.
um, and there's so much more to talk about. But
Well, thank you.
parents, just we really want to encourage you, and don't in this time. Really, what I've been hearing this whole hour is, breathe.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
you don't. It's not nothing to stress out about. Kids are going to be fine,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
you are the parent.
Yeah.
Last week we talked with your husband about being the parent really and taking responsibility for the parenting, taking responsibility as a parent for our kids' education.
Yeah. Mhm.
Ultimately it is our responsibility. It's
Mm.
not the state's, it's not the schools, it's ours.
Yeah.
And we've gotten used to just handing that off to somebody, saying, okay, you
Hmm.
take care of that part.
Right.
And but really it does come back on us. And
Hmm.
it's coming back on us in a big way right now.
Yeah.
So but there's an awesome way to handle that transition. I know you guys have a Facebook group that you guys have made available to
Yeah.
everybody that wants to follow you guys and join in the fun.
Yes.
And it is. And so share with everybody about that, and then we'll post the link
Yeah,
after the show.
sure. Well, so Being with the Benhams is the name of the Facebook group, and it really is just kind of our expression as a family
Yeah.
and really kind of normalizing some of the dynamics that go on in family and being, really challenging ourselves to be vulnerable enough to share like what we might be working through, while also just showing you some of the elements of our family and what we do love, how we do express ourselves. It's funny, like I felt like, well, so God had said start it right when the quarantine started, and I was like, really? Okay, what are we going to do? And I thought, oh, we'll make it this really fun thing, and we'll do like pop up Nerf wars and do all these fun things. And I'm pretty sure the first few things that we shared were like real life things,
Right.
like, oh, wow, Scott's dad passed away within a week. And then, I had a huge pity party. Well, it was not a pity party, but it started as a pity party um, on my birthday. And just me talking through verbally processing that. And what we found is just our willingness to, like I said to you guys, say all the stuff so that you're able to see it differently. Our verbal processing has really led people to their own space of being able to be like, wow, that was so helpful to hear you saying all of that because I didn't hear any like judgment or shame.
Right.
I just heard you processing, and that gave me a space to do that processing too for myself. So that's really what we want people to see is just how we do family, because we have worked on being willing to share so
Yeah.
that it doesn't get trapped in that cycle and then contribute to negative behavior,
Right.
basically.
Yeah. It's also, I really appreciate the transparency on that page and just being able to, pull the curtain back and let everybody see like how it goes, and not just the
Yeah.
positives. So many times on social media, we only showcase the positive and, the
Yeah.
best side of family or the best side of being a parent and our kids. But we don't really show them the times where we break down. And
Yeah, for
so definitely
sure.
appreciate the transparency, but it is a lot of fun. It's great to see and just be a part
Yeah.
of what's happening. So if
Well,
you're
thank
watching and you'd like to join that group, we'll
Yeah.
post the link to that group after the show.
Yeah, for
It is
sure.
also down on the Parenting Accurately Facebook page at some point. I know I posted it last week, but we'll
Cool.
post it again, make it easy for you guys to find. But
Yeah,
again,
thank you.
thank you for joining us, and I'm sure that we'll have you guys on again.
Yeah, awesome. We'll see you soon, Jason.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
All right. So, well, guys, that was so many good things in there. Go back and watch it again if you feel like there's some things that you heard that you want to intently listen to again. There's a lot of opportunity that we live in now that everybody's home and kids are home, so we don't know how long this will last, and so take advantage of it while we can. Parenting accurately really show up in your kid's life and improve. Use this time to work on our parenting skills. And as we talked about today in this broadcast, that homeschooling is not as difficult as one might seem. Homeschooling is really just about helping your kids learn and using every opportunity, using life experience as opportunity to teach our kids things, to pull the gold out of them. So I want to encourage you to do that. So if you guys have any questions or you want some, there's an area that you need some advice on or some help, feel free to reach out to us. We're here to help you guys, and we love you all. Next week, I believe Libby Jane will be on the show. So We'll be welcoming her back. To that, I'll be posting the details shortly. So until then, you guys have a great week, and we will see you soon.